Hello everyone, my name is Mulika Khao. Welcome to the grade 8 natural science lesson. For today's lesson, we'll be learning about static electricity, which is a very interesting topic. So there's some of the things that occurs around us that we might not be aware that we experience static electricity. For example, have you ever used a comb when you comb your hair and notice that your hair is standing up, or using the same comb to attract tiny pieces of paper they do attract on the comb? That's exactly what we'll be learning about today. So firstly, let's go through our slides. Slide number one is learning objective. These are the things that you should be able to know by the end of the lesson. So, number one, you should know what is static electricity. Number two, how Rabin creates it. Number three, the rule of charges, how it attract and repel. And number four, you should be able to give examples of static electricity. Okay, now we're gonna go through our second slide, which is atom. So firstly, before we're gonna talk about static electricity, we need to go through first and talk about atom, because atom is the only way that's gonna make us understand the charges of how electrons are being transferred. So at first, an atom is a tiny building blocks of what? Of matter. So if you check your structure here, it has electron, proton, and the neutron, right? So remember, the electron are negative charges, while your proton are what? Are the positive charges, and the neutron are just neutral, right? And again, electrons are the one that are being transferred from one object to another. So in order for electrons to be transferred from one object to another, friction must occur. There must be friction between two objects in order for electrons to be what? To be transferred. You should remember that. Okay, now let's proceed to the next slide. Here we'll be explaining how friction and charges transfer. If you check on step number one, they have a ruler and a club. Firstly, you should know that your ruler is neutral, it's not charged. It has both protons and what? And the neutrons. So immediately when you take a cloth and rub it on your ruler, right, you're gonna cause the friction. So then that's when the electrons you're gonna cause the electrons to move from the cloth to what? To your ruler. Then your ruler is gonna have extra electrons. That's when it's gonna be what? Negatively charged, because it has gained electrons. Now your cloth has lost electrons, it's gonna be what? Positively charged. And remember, an object that loses electrons is gonna be positively charged, and the one that gains electrons is gonna be what? Negatively charged. And now we're gonna go on step number two. Now that your ruler is being charged, now there's tiny pieces of paper here. Firstly, remember your tiny pieces of paper, they are neutral. So in order for those papers to attract to your ruler first needs to be charged. And that's what happened at step one. We saw that your ruler is being charged, now is being moved towards what? Your tiny pieces of paper to attract the positive side of what? Of your papers. That's how you see, that's when you see those tiny pieces of paper being attracted toward to your ruler. That's how charges are being transferred between two objects. That's where we see charges being transferred between a cloth and a ruler. Then the ruler is being used to do what? To attract other object, right? Then after, we're gonna proceed to the important part, which is the rule of charges. Here we're gonna understand in order for charges to attract or repel, how charges are supposed to be, right? At first, number one, objects or materials with opposite or unlike charges attract each other. So if you can see here on positive and negative charges, they do attract each other. The arrows move towards each other. So here remember, in order for ruler to attract those tiny pieces of paper, it has to be charged first. So it was charged first in order to attract what? To attract those papers. Then, secondly, materials or objects with the same or like charges, they repel each other. So, if you can check here, we have positive and positive. They move away from each other. If you check the arrows here, and also the negative and negative, they move away from each other. So, if your ruler was not charged here, those tiny pieces of papers, they were not gonna stick here, they were not gonna attract what? Your ruler. They were just gonna remain the way they are, right? That's how the rule of charges work. Now we're gonna move to other example of static electricity. Static electricity does not only occurs on rulers. I know we already given the example of a ruler, but does not only occur on rulers. It can also occur on the door. When you touch the door handle, then you experience a shock. And also when your clothes sticking together after using a what? And a dryer. And another example that I can give that is not there is the lightning on how lightning is formed, the way we see lightning. At first, in the clouds, ne, water and air rub together, and charges build up. After charges build up, they're gonna cause what? They're gonna cause the clouds on the top part to do what? To have positive charges, and on the bottom part to have negatively charges. So after that, the charges are gonna grow big. They're gonna grow too big. Then after growing too big, they're gonna do what? They're gonna discharge. After discharging, that's how we see the lightning occurs, right? Then we have come to the closure. That's when we're gonna recap what we have learned today. Remember when we started, we said atoms have positive and negative particles. That's when we saw the structure of an atom had positive and negative particles. Positive, which are protons, while negative charges, which are what? Which are electrons. And again, with the static electricity is an imbalances of what? Of the charges. Again, friction from rubbing moves electrons. Remember when I said, when we started, we said electrons, in order to do what? To move from one object to another, they need what? Friction. Rubbing needs to occur in order to cause friction. That's when the electrons will be able to what? Are able to move. Then the object that gains electrons become negative, and the one that loses become positive. And remember that example we used the ruler and what? And the cloth. Cloth lost electrons, which became what? Positively charged, while our ruler gained the electrons, became what? Negatively charged, right? And again, let's not forget the rules of charges, where unlike charges they attract each other, and like charges they do what? They repel on each other. Then we're gonna go through this quiz together to see um if you understand what you have learned today. You can pause the video and check the answers if you were correct. So question number one, it says, what is transferred when two objects are being rubbed together? So the two objects, when they are being rubbed together, remember, when there's friction, when rub, it causes what? Friction. So the correct answer is number B. Electrons, that they are the one that are being transferred from between what? Two objects. Then number question two, then a ruler rubbed with wool becomes negatively charged because it gains electrons. Remember, when our ruler, after being rammed, the cloth transferred its electrons to the what? To the ruler. Now the ruler gains electrons. The correct answer is number B. Question 3, which is a real world example of static electricity. I also gave an example of how lightning it occurs. So the correct answer is number B, lighting in the sky. Okay, now we have come